Hello, Rob. Hi, Rob.
Hello. Oh my word.
How?
Speaking to the whole hall.
Excuse me, but the manager's got back from Mud Club in Canada.
He probably can't hear you.
No, good.
We think this is it.
Evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is a meeting of the Frome Town Council Oversight Committee. I'm Mark Dorrington. I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. We have people here in the room and online. So if you're going to talk, please speak into a microphone so everybody can hear it, and it'll be picked up for our podcast or whatever we do. For those in the room, the emergency exit is in the rear corner of the room. The assembly point at the far side of the car park, toilet's at the end of the corridor, accessible to the right of the lift. Get some drinks. Tonight, Paul Clark, Laura Becker and Rachel, no Becker, Laura, Rachel and Sarah will manage the minutes, questions board, participant settings and the IT generally. Meeting will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. Anybody attending via Zoom, please use the yellow hand, and anybody else, please ask questions through the Q&A board. Paul, do we have any apologies for absence?
Andy Jones, Steve Tanner and Nick Dove.
Can somebody propose we accept those apologies? Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Anne.
It's unanimous.
Excellent. We then have the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 24th of July. Declaration. Is anybody interested? Declarations of interest? No? Thank you. 24th of July was the last meeting. We have minutes of that. I wasn't present. So anybody want to propose that? That's Fiona and seconding. Ben and I weren't there, so we can't really vote on that. But
So that's a majority.
thank you. Right, matters arising from those minutes. I'll go through them because I had to make myself aware of what was going on. There was a short presentation from the Frome Skate Park group. I have watched this on the YouTube channel, so I do know what went on. But the upshot of that was, I think Rachel is now agreeing to liaise with Sue Bucklow and the skate park people.
Yes, that's right. And yep, that's plans are sort of underway already to have a look at a whole variety of other things up in Mary Bailey, and the skate park will now be part of that. As part of that, the skate park group are going to do a skate jam on the 28th of September, and that will give us a really good opportunity to be out in the park talking to other park users, asking people how they have got to the event, and all sorts of other information that we'll need for the pre-app. So all in all, that's really positive. I believe Sue's talking to Maverick on Monday about sort of conceptual designs that could go forward to that pre-app. So it's still, well, it's a genuine engagement process, not non-prejudged, but hopefully at the end of the, after the skate jam, we will have enough information to be able to really put that pre-app in and know what's what when it comes out of that.
Thank you.
Mark,
So
can I just ask a question? I don't want to appear really old, but what is a skate jam?
Yes, skate jam is a really nice thing. It's a competition, and it can be done in all sorts of ways. And it's not really something that's elite. It's a real sort of bottom-up thing. There'll be sort of age ranges, prizes for various tricks, all sorts of things. That element is entirely and completely and utterly down to them. So you'll be pleased to know I'm not trying to think about that at all.
Thank you. That has explained it. Thank you.
So they will get on and organise that. But what we do know is the 28th. It's from 1 until 5, up at the skate ramps. Should be a lot of fun, I think. There is also other things that go along with it. Generally, there will be music. It will be the raucous end of having a skate park, which in a way is a really excellent test. We're going to then go into Longleat Court, for example. We'll go in the week before, we'll go in the week after, just to find out how, people have changed perceptions, if they have, or just basically to do some good old-fashioned conversation.
And this falls within the consultation generally for the park, doesn't it?
Yeah, yes. So over that whole week, we're talking to lots of different people in the park about various things that we want to know. It's slightly different from the show field engagement. It's not quite so open because there are definite things that we think we want to know about, or we might ask people for their suggestions. I know that Rob wants to have, for example, a particular ornamental tree, things that we really know that we really want to test. So it's slightly less open and a bit more targeted in some cases.
And I think it's right that the only site that's viable at the moment is a renewal of the current site. I know we're still looking to help them look for other sites in the town, but that's the one that we're looking at the moment, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's really why we've been asked to start having those conversations to give any application the best chance with the most information, and for it to be as, our position to be as genuinely neutral as we, as it.
And as soon as we have
be.
a design,
Yeah,
we'll ask Jane to look at it,
absolutely.
and we will help them work out whether it's permitted development or new planning permission.
Definitely.
With that process.
Yes, as part of that, some of the things you'll need to know. So some of the questions we'll be asking are very specific, such as how did you come to the park today? And just making sure we record how many people came and what they, how they got there, what they did when they were there.
I think also just one other bit of information, Mark, 'cause you weren't here, is I think it was Steve or Nick, I think it was Steve came up also the idea of maybe on Mary Bailey, but in a different location, sort of more in the middle. I think that was also sort of something that was going to be explored as well. But I just think it's really good that we're actually exploring it. It's been an idea, it's been kicked around for a really long time, and they really want it there and think it's the best place, and let's actually work out whether it actually is going to work there and move it forward in some way. So I think it's great that we're finding out, basically.
It has gone on quite a while, hasn't it? Because
they're so delighted. I'd just like to feed that back to the committee, that they are so delighted that they feel that this is at least a step that's moving. So,
can we put a ban on officers taking part in anything skate parking?
I should say the level of enthusiasm also in the town since the meeting. I came across a group of young people who were actually mildly vandalising some of Frome Town Council property. And as soon as I said I was a councillor, they said, "Oh, the skate park," and I got into a conversation with them. And then actually, once I sort of explained about the skate park process, they then sort of stopped other children vandalising because they were like, "Oh, we can't do that because then we won't be able to get the skate park because we can't afford it." So actually, it's quite useful.
Very good. Anything else on skate parks? Thanks for taking that on, Rachel. Appreciate it. Apparently Fiona raised some questions at the last meeting under Para 3 about the role of this committee, and we should be doing a bit more. And I think we've worked that out, that this committee could do quite a bit more. So at the moment, it's a quarterly meeting, or has been a quarterly meeting, and we've done a deep dive into the areas of work that we have in the council. Rachel, Rob, Sarah. So as it's going to be bi-monthly, it's a suggestion that we do the deep dive every other time. You'll still do a quarterly update, but if we did it every other month, you'd be starting a report as soon as you finish the last one. So that seems to be a more sensible use of time.
That seems eminently sensible, yes.
So we'll still get a quarterly report, but you don't feel that we don't need a report every other month. And we'll get a rota going, and starting today, so we'll see how that goes. We want to it's a suggestion that community development becomes part of this meeting, so we can all join everything up. So somebody from community development can come to this meeting, what we discuss here, because we need to work with them a bit better about and task them and whatever work they're going to do in the community, and they can report back of what they've done. That might work. And events as well. We've tried to organise events advisory groups which aren't that well attended, so this will be an opportunity for you to bring you and your team the events that we're going to think about doing or not doing. We get onto events later on, but that would be a good idea to bring that in within this group, so there's more people might be here, and it's recorded, and it's public, and it's all
More
that.
people might be.
Say again?
More people, I wouldn't count on it.
Well,
I agree about that.
more people than we've had at the other meeting. And one for Laura, make more decisions about HR at this meeting. We discussed this the other night about should an HR decision go to full council, should it come to this meeting? We are going to discuss HR issues at this meeting. The difficulty we would have, and it's not a difficulty, it's something easily surmountable, if we want to make a change to staff on the organisational chart, then that has to come to the full council, which is why we had the meeting last time. If we want to put that totally within the remit of this meeting, we would have a resolution put before full council to change the standing order.
What we've done in other instances is we've made a decision maybe in another meeting, and then that's been ratified, or if you like, rubber stamps at the full council. Could we work that way?
We could. We can do that.
Yeah.
And because there aren't many of us here, and I would worry if we were making decisions about spending money on a new staff member without the backup of the full council being fully aware of why we're doing it. So we make all of the decision, we have all of the discussion, we decide whether it's a good idea or not here, but then we bring it to full council for them to ratify that decision. That seems like a nice way of working.
I think that runs the risk of us having the conversation twice, which I am really against, because I just think no one has the time for that. And I think that sort of in a way, like, committees need to have their own remit and their own areas. And if councillors want to have a say on them, then they need to become members of the committee. And, you know, like, I don't expect to have a say on grants. Like, the grants aren't, you know, I'm not on the grants committee. That's sort of my thing.
Or maybe in if we are going to be making a decision about changing the organisational chart, then we invite other councillors to come and see the discussion, but not necessarily vote, because they're not members of the committee. So
All these things, you're absolutely right to raise these questions. One of the ways through that is if oversight, we're talking about staff, if oversight decides on tweaks to the organisation chart within budget, as opposed to significant changes to the organisation structure. One of the things I felt from council last week is that we were talking about a relatively minor staff issue, but we were following standing orders. So I came at it from that direction thinking, okay, I agree, it was a relatively minor issue, and that's something that oversight could have spent time discussing and then decided. So what we were wondering is whether or not we put to council for approval, be like the management structure of the organisation, whereby you've got the managers, and then Sarah works up the budget for the staff body as a whole. So if there are changes to the managerial structure of the organisation, then I think that's probably a valid discussion for council. But if it's something like we had last week, then probably this committee is better. And so long as the proposals look rational, tick box number one. Sarah, do you want to go down as well? So we just pause this for a minute.
That's the emergency for the front desk, and if they ring us, one has to pick it up
Yeah. Okay, so we're all right. So one of the ways, and I was thinking about bringing this to council next time because it's a council decision to change standing orders. That means that decisions about the rest of the staff body can be made at this committee so long as they're within the overall staff budget. That seemed to be a possible way through.
I think
That
that's
seems
really good.
sensible.
I think it's really good. Can I just raise, I think what Mark said is also really good there about councillors being able to, in this committee, sort of raise or bring forward sort of areas of work where they feel they've maybe not got as much like understanding or eyes on, or sort of, you know, feel like they're having as much say. Like, and I think community engagement is a very good example of that at the moment. And it's just at the moment, but, and being able to say, can we, you know, sort of have a bit more oversight over that for the next sort of few months, whatever it is, I think is a really good idea for this committee. And also, I was going to say something else that I thought that you said was good, and I can't think what it was.
I've picked that up, Fiona, that I think this can be a forum to suggest items for future meetings for our to be considered to be talked about. Sometimes they won't need to be, but if you, almost like an AOB, I know we never do AOB, but if there's something you wanted to raise that would be suitable for this meeting, then that can be included in future agendas.
And also, I know what I was going to say, and also I said it last time, but I also think there's also a role for this committee in terms of the how of how a council works. Like, that's what I've always seen it as, like the what is in the council meeting and the how is here, sort of the process. And maybe when there are sort of significant processes, like I think I mentioned it last time, like agreeing the precept or the work programme or the new strategy or the new, don't mention the S word, the strategy, how to decide the strategy, etc. The process could be brought here to be agreed. I think that would work really well as well, because you've got the sort of the smaller group of, you know, councillors to look at things, and then we're agreeing a process before it gets going.
I really like that idea, and having a bit more breathing space if we move to bi-monthly, then we've got deep dives every other month and then space in the intervening ones to say, please, can we look at this? Yeah, I like that.
Can I please request for next month an update on community engagement in that case? Formally.
Yes, and we'll have a look at what's already on the agenda.
Okay, but whenever, can I?
Process we're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and
So
that was what we were saying, that we want to bring community engagement within this meeting as well, so all that flows across.
So what about the quarterly updates? Do we still need those as well? Quarterly staff updates?
That's up to you. Can I come back to that? I just wanted to put one other thing, because one of you just suggested last time, which I thought was a good idea, the kind of rolling agenda items to what to look forward to, which will identify the gaps. So Mark and I were talking today about, at the end of the agenda each time for Oversight in Future, the thought is to have upcoming agenda items and even a table, the next 3 or 4. So, you know, there will always be fluid, but at least there's, you know, when something's coming up. And the question about whether council laws at this or at council want to receive quarterly work programme updates is a question for you.
I was going to suggest this separate to tonight's meeting, but can we please have a look at internal communications more broadly? I think and I think one of the other things I think is quite helpful about this is I think that when it comes to processes, you don't need lots of people with different opinions on a process, because actually it just needs a few people to kind of work it out. But I would quite like to have a look at internal communications and how councillors are updated. I feel like we've gone from sort of getting too much information to too little. It feels like it's swinging a bit, and I'm not sure we've quite found the like perfect porridge of updates. And that will be different for every single councillor, and I will probably be at the wanting more information side of things. I think we all know that, but I think we could have a look at, so that it doesn't overburden the staff, which I'm really aware of, but also doesn't overburden the lead councillors, because I don't think it's right that we then become like the main conduit, because we're not paid and, you know, we have lives, etc., and we can't, that's not fair.
So do the staff, I'm sure.
Yes, but they're paid is my point, but, you know, but also not overburden them to that amount. So I think we need to sort of have a better look at that. And to me, that's like perfect discussion for oversight. And I was also wondering, another idea that I've had, is to get into a bit of a, like, open something up for discussion at one, and then at the next one, get a decision paper. So you're sort of discussing something and then deciding on it. So discussing it, giving a steer, but then whatever it is, the changing to the standing orders or whatever comes next, so that you can kind of...
Okay. I think your point about internal communications, there's always a problem because the level of need, want, capacity varies in 17 different ways. Where we are at the moment is that's why I like, because we don't have to rely on lead councillors. This is why I like the kind of quarterly work programme updates. So there's a way of communicating process, which is only one part of internal communications, but that process then reaches all councillors, and the glitches in the work programme delivery identified and can be discussed at either council or oversight, depending on which place it goes to. The interim questions, sorry, the interim updates about mostly this week I've been doing this, or mostly this month. We've tried them and got no feedback from anyone whatsoever. And where staff have come to me and go, oh, I've got too much, and I said, well, we'll drop that one because it doesn't seem to be important. No one's crying in, no councillors are coming to me crying, so I haven't had that one. There's one member of the community development team that does that quite religiously on a monthly basis. And she's always asking me whether it's useful. But my response is, well, if you find it useful and some councillors find it useful, then it's worth doing. She finds it useful for her team to sort of, this is what we've been doing. It's a kind of a little bit of celebration, but also kind of just keeping on track. So there's internal reasons to do that as well. But she's the only one out of all the managers that are doing this at the moment, and no one has come to me going, I really want that. So I've kind of let those fizzle. But
Fair enough.
That discussion, I think, about information from the staff body to and back again, to councillors and back again, I think it's an inevitable ongoing discussion. And if we tweak it, it's like sort of just incrementally changing things as councillors want, really.
I think it's also about what councillors find helpful to, like, and what they actually want to know. I think sometimes it's like, you get like a lot of information. I think sometimes it's like what I thought worked, and we only did it, I don't know, twice or something, but Nikki she would write an update of what the team were doing, Nikki Brain, send it to me, and I would then, there was a couple of times I did it, but I thought it worked quite well when I did, I would then write in blue or red or a different colour my own sort of thoughts and like highlights of things that I thought councillors would know, and then I sent it on to councillors. And I actually thought that worked really well, because there was a bit of, I know what councillors are sort of interested in, want to know. I'll add a bit of the extra, like, rather than like, this is what we've done, more of like, this is like, you know, more I don't know, I guess it's sort of the details I think councillors might want to know. I don't know, I just thought that worked quite well when I think we only did it once or twice, but that might be an option, because then it kind of means that lead councillors aren't having to write it all out, but also they get to kind of be like, okay, you know, we've maybe got a bit more of an oversight of what's going on in that area, and we can add a little bit more detail and kind of highlight, look, you need to look at this kind of thing, rather than.
So maybe next time we meet as a group of councillors, wherever we meet, we should discuss what we actually need, what we actually want, and how it looks, and then we can ask people to report accordingly.
We just have the conversation here in oversight, rather than having to have it in if and then bring it to oversight. Like, if it's on the agenda, if other councillors have thoughts, they can turn up. Like, I don't think we need to be duplicating conversations all the time.
That is what I think is the advantage of an update on the work programme, because what staff are doing really ought to be implementing the work programme. And 99, there are things that aren't on it that have to happen. But that's why I think the kind of formal rag rating update of the work programme on a quarterly basis from each manager, I think is a really powerful tool. But if you, however you want to talk about it, we can put an agenda item on.
I agree. I like the idea, and sometimes, hopefully most of the time, it can be a bit of a celebration of what we're doing as well.
If everything's green, Anne, things are going great, aren't they?
Make use of 4 information papers that don't need to be discussed. I was thinking you can have 4 discussion, 4 decision, and then there can just be 3 or 4 papers at the end that's 4 information. We don't need to discuss them unless anyone's got any questions. And you can kind of lighten the agenda, but they have all been put out publicly. They've been sent to all councillors. I think sometimes...
Already, though.
Yeah, but maybe you do. I just, but maybe make more use of it. So it's like more, look, we don't have to have a presentation. We don't need to sort of hear everything, but they have been put out publicly and we can just have a look at them.
So we're playing into Laura's hands here. So you got the paper. Any questions?
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Good.
As someone who reads the papers, I get annoyed when I then have to listen to them. You've all read it,
Okay, so just to summarise, just next time, the oversight agenda will include upcoming items on the on oversight, and we've got that. We know what's coming up. It's just we haven't shared it with you, so that's a really easy task for us. We'll add in the suggestions that we've had today for upcoming ones to that. And then what Laura and I'll have to do is just rationalise that and make sure we're not going to be here till midnight. Good.
Okay,
Thanks, that was really useful.
thank you. And there was a discussion about the Frome Town Hall retrofit report. We don't need to go through all that again. We just need to decide. Oversight Committee is responsible for estates management, so it could sit within this meeting, the decisions, but as it's a large sum of money, or possible large sum of money, should we ask full council to remit it to us?
And I don't know what you're going to say, but my suggestion is that we do bring it to this committee and then have a good discussion about it. It's likely to be quite a lot of money, about 80,000-ish, and I think that is quite a significant decision, so maybe it's a ratification at council.
Yeah, I mean, in other organisations where I am, we have sort of levels. So, you know, if it's this X thousand, decide it here. If it's above that, go to full council. So, you know, we could just have guidance on spending money here or spending money there. Yeah.
I think there's a risk in having explicit numbers, because something might be relatively cheap but really significant, and vice versa.
Is it out of the budget for this year? Because that, to me, is a sort of deciding factor. It's similar to the staffing thing. Is that if it's in line, if we're sort of, is it allocated money for this year spending?
No, the proposal will be that it comes out of an EMR and surplus.
But the
Depending on
earmark isn't earmarked for town hall development.
There is an EMR. There is an EMR for town hall maintenance. Yes, town hall investment.
But then there would also be, that wouldn't cover it.
No.
I mean, I think if it was within the EMR and the budget, it would be here. But
Yeah.
as it's a surplus, I think actually it does need to go to council, if that makes sense. To me, if it's within,
Using the general reserve, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
The reason I was slightly hesitant, because we're not absolutely sure how much it's all going to cost at the moment, but I still think it's quite a significant decision.
Yeah.
So good discussion here.
Yeah. Thrash it out here.
Yeah.
Tell them why there. Yeah.
or just put it straight into council and have the discussion there. Like, again, it's a duplication of conversations. I just think isn't a good use of people's time. I'm sorry, I'm being,
Between the devil and the
yeah.
other councils.
Yeah, I just think it could go to council if it includes.
Well, really, it doesn't matter when. We just need to know when we need to write the paper, I suppose, is the most important thing. But I think we've sort of penciled it in for November, haven't we?
For oversight, November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just need to decide, I guess, is the key.
Can I make a suggestion then? We carry on with the plan to bring it to this next committee meeting of this place, discuss the proposals, take Sarah's information about where the budget might come from, and then in the light of that, maybe my kind of thinking this is a big decision, in the discussion it might not be, and we can, I think if we're taking money out of general, well, I know if we're taking money out of a general reserve, it's a council decision as opposed to oversight, so it's beyond the budget. But if we can then go to council with we've discussed this, don't want to talk about it again, will you just approve this, please?
Here is our proposal. Well thrust.
You try telling this group of councillors what to do.
This proposal would come from the chair of oversight.
I mean,
As we heard, as we heard so much during the election, this is a costed, this is where the money comes from, it's costed, this is what it's going to cost, and so that's what we're going to do. Ben, did you have something to say? Okay, shot his fox.
So Laura's just noting that the next meeting of this committee is 23rd of October, not early November, and then council is early November. Can we stick to that and then see how it feels on the 23rd of October?
Everybody happy with that?
Can Rachel and Sarah work within that timetable? Well,
We will just need to check one or two things, but
that's the intention then.
yes, that is our intention.
No.
Okay. I think that's the only
Yeah.
matters arising I had from the minutes of the last meeting. Anybody else wants to raise from that? We've already voted to accept them, haven't we? So that's fine. Okay, on to the agenda. First one is an update from...
Any questions or comments?
Any questions or comments from the
Questions from
council? All the members of the public here? No? Okay, we'll move on from that. Rachel, you're going to
Yes.
lead on the next one.
I am.
You're going to say, we've had the report, is there any questions on it?
Yes, something like that. I have read I've written the report, and you will have seen that. Since I've written the report, I have had a few questions though around where various events have come from. So I thought it might be quite useful to just talk about that here, so that we've sort of said it in public. And I've got 3 events which are quite a good illustration. First things first, I do have one slide to show you quickly as a quick. Not that one. There we are. That is the 27 events that we are supporting, delivering and promoting this September. Now, let me just caveat that. September is always the worst month, followed by March. There's a definite pattern. There's a definite, 27 this month. So far, we've got 17 in the calendar for October. So that's the sort of scale we're talking about, which is why I thought it was useful to break things into the 5 different types of events. So that's really just for illustration. But today I thought I'd just talk about 3 other events that we've been asked about. One was the 50th celebration. One was the dog show, not the dog show, the dog agility. And the other one was wilding. So all things that we have been in our ether this month, mostly this month, a little bit of last month. The 50th. So that is a really good example of something that was in the work programme, one of those little lines. It was in the budget, had a budget line against it, and that we talked about it in the advisory group. So we do advisory group 4 times a year, or we have done up until now. I think we're just about to change that. 4 times a year, and then there's a little agenda that comes attached to that with me suggesting what we are going to have a look at. So that is absolutely where that 50th celebration event came from, and it's got a very clear councillor-led pathway, shall we say. Although obviously it didn't have a decision made, it never did come to a council or to an oversight other than the original budget setting, which is when the work programme gets approved. So that was that one. Dog show. People have asked me where the dog show has come from. So that's dog agility. It's sort of come through a different route. So as part of the show field engagement, we had lots of different areas that we wanted to explore, and we needed to talk to lots of different people. One of the biggest users in the show field were our dog walkers. So we thought it would be really great to do something to attract lots of dog walkers all at once so we could talk to them in one place. That was really quite successful. We got lots of people there. It was very low cost. The event was run by somebody else for free. So that was really very useful, and we just had to come up with a few prizes. So low cost, high impact, got lots of information out that we needed. Whilst we were looking at that, Rob then made some decisions. It's to try and inform the whole of the engagement, was to try and inform Rob's management plan. So he then made some decisions, also some things that he thought might like to happen in the Showfield, and the subsequent event that we've been trying to have is to try and have a look at that, test it out, see how people felt, and see whether it was really a goer. Alongside that, in order to apply for funding for it, we needed to have clear evidence that it was needed, required, and requested by the public. So that was the reason for doing that. So again, quite a clear reason, but maybe not, but with not so much process attached, because I suppose the discussion was more internal there, but part of a wider engagement piece. So that was that one. Again, low cost, high impact. And we'll get what we need out of it. There is, just to say, it is still running, the engagement is still running. We've got a survey out. Anybody who's interested can still input into that up until the 14th of September. We are still going to try and reschedule that event, but obviously the wetter it gets, the more difficult that becomes. So the final event that is not in the work programme and not on anything is Wilding. So this is a film that it was suggested to us we might want to show. It was brought to me as an idea by Sarah, one of our councillors, that we might want to show. Could we get this in Frome? It hadn't been shown anywhere in Frome. So that was a case of just doing a little bit of research to find out if it was possible. Rang the Westway to see whether they wanted to and were able to, which would have been the quickest win, obviously. But within about half an hour, it became obvious that they didn't want to, but they knew how we could if we wanted to. So again, quite low staff involvement and quite high impact. In the end, it proved really popular, sold out within, half a minute of being advertised, and we have also managed to attract Charlie and Izzy from the NEP estate to come and do the Q&A. So that's very exciting, low cost, high impact, but not a clear pathway onto not a twinkle in the eye of the work programme, other than supporting our climate and biodiversity emergency. So there we are. That's just a quick run through. I don't know if anyone's got any questions about any of that.
Have you got those three?
Yes, yeah, just on a slide.
While that's coming up, I think it's quite interesting that, yes, we do a lot of events, but some of them are council-led, some of them are one-offs. We've got an opportunity, can we take it? Some of them are something to hang some community engagement on.
Yeah.
And probably we could organise that big spreadsheet of all of those events in. This one came from councillors, this one came from an opportunity we wanted to take, this one came because we wanted to hang some community engagement on it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a way of working out how they go on. I think that's why I was trying to strata them as different. And
that's why we asked Rachel to come up with some questions which sort of put a framework around that, I think.
Yeah, so my first question is a little bit defunct. I think we've answered that. Is the advisory group working? Probably, I would say, because I needed to come and answer those, or talk publicly about those other events, it probably isn't working quite the way it should
I just want to reiterate that, and obviously sort of working closely with Rachel. I think it also sort of leaves you open, because not all councillors go, it's not minuted, it's not formal. It leaves you, when was this discussed, where did this event come from, etc. And it just feels like it's sort of not really fair to you. And I also think that because it's not sort of decision making, it's sort of what is I don't think you get strong enough steer, I guess, from it either. So I just don't think it's working. And I think we need to look at other options.
I mean, there are definite different reasons for doing events, and all of them are as valid, and some of them, you can need a quicker turnaround than others, and some of them need a quicker decision than others. Yeah.
I think the thing from that, sorry, Paul, I think the thing from that previous spreadsheet is we do a lot, and it's tempting when an opportunity comes along to grab it, but you can only be stretched so far.
Just looking at the first question, Rachel says, I think we've answered it. I agree. Her and me, I think this place is the place to do it. So maybe we can go, yep. Are we doing too many events?
Well, we've just got to keep it under review and really justify doing events for one of those reasons. It's a really great opportunity, let's grab it. Or it's community engagement that we really want to hang our hat on it, or all of the councillors want us to do it. So if we can justify it from under one of those headings, then I think we do it. But if it's a, well, I don't know, yeah, it might work, then I think we say maybe not this year.
You think we're doing too many events?
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, part of our job, as you know, is always to take advantage of opportunities that fit in our strategic objectives. And one of the things about marketing is you've just got to reinvent the same thing in a different way to create a message. Events are always a really good way of doing that. It's just that obviously it's across the whole team, and the more team members we get, the more events necessarily we get. So I mean, you know, there's a difference between us doing the marketing and communications for an event to us delivering events. That is different.
Yeah, I mean, the thought comes to mind of obviously, you know, as open spaces has grown, we've brought in more rangers and more staff, energy, time, you know, especially going into the kind of devolution phase and how that might feed into events, and whether or not we're doing events that are kind of promoting what's happening in the devolution space. And I don't know, could there be scope for an assistant marketing someone in the devolution budget? I don't know, but...
Can I just say, because I work closely with Rachel, and I think what I see, and I think it came through really clearly when you went through the work programme and highlighted, is out of everyone, and maybe, and you know, everyone whose teams I know, and maybe this isn't true, but I feel that Rachel's team has the least control over their own work programme in a way, because it is there's so much stuff they do that is related to other work programmes and other areas of work, and I don't want to go back to Max's matrix or whatever, but you are a real horizontal across the whole organisation. And I think that it just means that you're sort of, you know, there's other things in other people's work plans that then come into yours. And I can see it happen. We'll have a conversation, be like, this is what I'm working on. Then next week and someone's asked me to do this event, and now I'm working on this. And I can see that it's sort of the lack of control that you have over being able to sort of like plan and decide your own team and the work program going forward, that I can see is really difficult. And I would just like to look at something that sort of gives you, and I think we need to trust I think a lot of events we do, I think most events we do are amazing, but I think there's also a sort of you know, are they really worth the time and energy it takes a team to do, like really realistically, like let's actually, rather than just sort of being like, this sounds nice, like, and I don't think you do that, but we need to trust your judgment on that as well.
It's really interesting though. I've had a look at, you know, some of the events we've been doing, and you know, it's really difficult to place value judgment on it. For example, Sally's retrofit wasn't actually that well attended. However, she had some amazing conversations. That's from this week, and she felt that there was really great value in that. So it is really tricky, and of course it takes us as much to get 4 people there as it would to get, you know, 40 people in the room. We have to do the same amount of comms, really. It doesn't make it any less valid if those are meaningful. I'm not sure that's my judgment to make.
I'm thinking about the major, if you like, keystone events through a year.
Okay.
So some things absolutely have to happen every year, otherwise there'd be uproar, like the Lantern Parade, Christmas light switch on. But then there are other things that have grown into the work programme and the annual events. For example, Apple Day. So we did it one year,
Yeah.
and presumably we looked at that after the event and we thought, literally after the event, what did we get out of that? What did the community get out of that? How well attended it was? So I think there's a danger if we load annual events, more and more annual events into our calendar.
Agreed.
And I think, we try Apple Day and then we think, well, let's do it every 5 years, rather than let's do it every year, because trees don't grow that quickly, So yes, we can celebrate autumn in lots of different ways in the town. It doesn't necessarily need to be an annual event.
It's really interesting though, isn't it? But one of the things that came out of is emerging from the engagement is that people want more events and activities, and that's so difficult to then see something that's popular and.
There's also an argument, devil's advocate with you, Anne. If you've done something once and then you've done it the next year, it becomes a well-oiled machine, and it's actually a lot easier to do every year rather than trying to invent something and create a whole new event just for a change.
I mean, Apple Day is an interesting example because we haven't done it every year. We've taken time off from it, or we've done, so we didn't do it last year, but we did do drones. There have been other times when we haven't done it, and we're due to do it shortly. Yes, I mean, basically, the first time you do something, it's 65 days, and the next time you do it, it comes down dramatically to anywhere between 30 to 35 days. But then you've got staff time on top. So if it's a big thing that's lasting all, it's certainly events are resource heavy. So
I think the point Anne's making, I really like, is to sort of recouch it, if you like. What I think you're saying is, let's just question each year whether or not we do it again, not just it has to be done, with the possible exception of the Christmas lights turn on.
Yeah.
So
We can question it. It just won't be a very long question.
Yeah, and just, do we want to do that again? Did it work? What can we learn from it? Did we do it right? Can we make it better? Or is this one that we let slide because it wasn't well attended? Or
Can I pick up another point, or amplify a point that Rachel made, and the town-wide engagement that we've been doing for the last few months? One of the really strong messages that came out was that the town, the community really loves events. Now, we're not the only event provider, obviously, and in the top of many people's mind would be the independent market, or it would be things at the Cheese and Grain, as Rachel.
the Children's Festival, or yeah.
But we complement that and add to it, and I think we would. Therefore, kind of the events offer that the town provides, that we really support, lead on some, help others, is a really popular thing. And it's about, okay, well, if that's really popular, this is a really strong message we're getting back. The question is perhaps, how can we carry on doing that level within that kind of rigor of choosing things that are in one of those categories, and avoiding choosing things that really don't fit what we think our strategy says or what the community wants, because those are coming up all the time, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
Rich and I were talking about something today that we won't talk about now. It's a straw in the wind, but we think, really, goodness, that's I don't know about.
And or 1 year we lead on it, and then we find for next year maybe the community group that own that green space would take over that event, and then we support them from then
Can
on.
I just say, I think this is a lovely idea, but I think that also leaves a lot of work for Rachel and her team. Like, let's not underestimate. Like, I just want to say, like, also, like, as a comms, like, when the thing that annoys me the most is when someone says, "Oh, you're just doing the comms for something, just doing that." It's not just. There is so much work involved in, even if it's someone else running it, whether it's setting up the ticket tailor, doing the copy, the social media posts, finding the photos, liaising with the venue, writing the piece for Freedom Times. There is a lot of work attached. I'm just sort of like saying that as a like general thing. Please let's not underestimate.
So
That's a bad idea.
from a perspective of what we do next or how, so I think last year, certainly before we're at that time of year, we're thinking about writing the work programme. How would we, given that the advisory group is going to go, how would we like to look at those events that we're going to take forward? Because
before we get to that, sort of, what I'm picking up on that middle question is, are we doing too many? I'm getting the feeling that actually, no, we're not doing too many, but we're always in risk of doing too many. And decisions need to be made, I suggest, within this committee, just to ensure that Rachel didn't really answer Ben's question about, are we doing too many?
yeah, are we?
Because I think it's not, you're not the best person to answer that, because you're in it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And I think having that, I have some input into that, but if this committee can go, no, I think that's enough for this council, thanks very much, that's enough.
Can I just say what I think? I think that we are a bit over at the moment. I think we're a bit over on the smaller, like, I don't know how to say it, like, I want to say faffy events, but that sounds rude. But I think it's not the big events, it's probably what the Tyner's talking about, but I think the sort of like the small events, I do, but also because I see that when your team has a space, like around Great Big Green Week, Mars did an amazing job on that programme. It looked brilliant because they had the space to do it, and there was a time, and I think that we're also at risk of, and I'm not saying this is happening, but the quality and the creativity sort of drops a little bit because you're so stretched, and that's what I see personally.
Also, it's very difficult to tell the same story the 36th time you've done it. If you're looking at a selection of things that have been running for 3 years, it's really very hard to make up.
So I'm thinking that's why we, in what we do well in lots of other fields, is we start something and then we see how we can spin it out, and whether that would, because at least, yes, you might still be doing all of the things that Fiona was talking about, but you're not actually running the event on the day. We're supporting rather than leading on it. And the more that we can push out, the better, possibly.
I think we haven't had so I do always try that. I would like to caveat that with, of course, when I'm writing my list, I don't just add things in. We do look at what we have done, how it went, and always try and move things on a little bit to make them better. There's no point in trying to do something and make it worse. So the only event where we've really had a good success in partnering just in a really positive, excellent way has been Froome Busks, which, goodness me, Froome College have really made that something else, and that is really brilliant. I don't think anybody would, the scheduling and all of the tricky bits of that have been taken from us, the performing aspects, the bits where we don't have expertise, leaving us with the bits that we do have expertise in as in the shape of things and the, how they might run. So that is a really good example. We had hoped that Apple Day would go that same way. Similarly, Wassail, we do that in partnership with the community group. That has been really enriching. We had hoped that they might take it on their own this year. Next year, January is when they do that. It's not quite clear whether that's going to be able to happen. Apple Day, ultimately, it didn't work, so
I'm thinking
Did
about,
you
you know,
wanna-
the rod and,
Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the reason I want to ask you that question is because I'm intrigued to know what you and the team feel like on a day-to-day basis. Like, do you feel too stretched?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
does it feel too much?
We're in September. September always feels stretched. We're coming up to our really big events where we have to make sure that lots of people are safe. And that is, you know, if we feel, it always is a stretch, this bit of that. If you are, you know, there are, you know, March, July and September, always lots and lots of things on there. June, you've then got Great Big Green Week. The rest of the time, it feels more manageable, let's say. But yeah, it's interesting that we're having this discussion at the type of year that's at the time of year that's our pinchiest end. So yes, it does at this point, I would say. Yeah.
Generally not so much, obviously this being one of the
Generally
busiest
not
months
in
of the
this
year,
way.
but I do think it's key.
I know I've got, having looked at your paper earlier, I came up with 3 questions. They may be rhetorical. We can work this out over the next months. Too many events. What Ben said, are you doing too many events? Are they the right type of events? Either the ones that we do or the ones that we support? And do we need a process on how to choose which ones we do and how we support, almost like a decision-making matrix of someone suggests something to you and you think, bang, 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 yes, we can do it. No, it's not going to be worth doing it or whatever. Do we need to create some sort of decision-making model for that? So, and then of course you need a budget. And if you don't know what events are coming up, I mean, there's obviously the landmark ones, but then the ad hoc ones, you don't know how much they're going to cost, or how much time there's going to be in another council's opportunity cost model. So you need some sort of figure for in our budget when we set it in January.
There is, like, this year there's 20 grand or something was allocated to, as like a general events pot, I think.
Is that enough? Is it not enough? We don't know.
Also, is the resource enough? Because this is the other question, is if councillors want us to continue events, as you say, they're really popular, then do we just need to give you extra resource in order to, you know, do it effectively? And, you know, I think that needs to be a question, because I think
Resourcing is very difficult if you don't know what events you're doing.
I think we can't really answer whether or not we've got enough resources, because it's one of those things, you know, it's a goldfish growing to the size of its bowl, I think. You know, with more resources, Rachel can do more events. If we need more events, we need more resources. It's about what's a comfortable fit. That's one point. My suggestion is on a process, is that we avoid in December listing the events that we collectively are wanting to do effectively in the next 15 months, because halfway through the year that list will have molded into something completely different. I think making decisions on, for example, with hindsight, on the 50th celebration effectively last December was probably too soon. I wonder whether council could agree a budget for events, and then Rachel comes back to these meetings and say, right, this is my, in March, for example, there are some events that will need to be, Christmas doesn't start after March. Christmas starts in January, February.
the running.
Yeah.
So there are some already started, but this committee can then discuss, what does that look like? And Rachel can give a steer about this. This is within capacity. I'm really struggling to do all these events. More resources, please, or do less events. And that kind of, each time Rachel comes up, which will be every other committee meeting, we can review that list and say, how does that feel? Undoubtedly, there'll be those opportunities like the wild and screaming that have come into that don't fit that process. But generally, that one of the points I think you made really strongly, Fiona, is the kind of decision-making process ought to be by committee, in a transparent way, and that might.
Can't just rely on Rachel saying yes or no, because that's not fair. I just don't think it's fair on Rachel, and it's not like,
that's
though her
our
expertise
body,
is like, her expertise is obviously very valuable. But I think I think that works for the marketing comms team events, those bigger events, and I can see that working. And I think the third party
I mean,
events.
to be honest, I don't think it's that bit that doesn't work.
That's what I'm
anyway.
getting at. It's the FTC. I think you're getting to the FTC wider team events, and I don't know whether there is something there. But if it's a one-off event, like that's fine. But I think what's also, I'm looking at that list, I'm thinking actually a lot of these are quite regular events. Like they're things they haven't just gone in as like a one-off event. And I'm obviously Green Healthy Freedom. I'm not going to, I think the retrofit events are brilliant, but they didn't go in as a one-off retrofit event. It went in as a program of 6 events or 8 events or something. That is actually quite a lot of work. So I think that if it's a sort of a one-off, that feels slightly different. But when we start getting into sort of, like a lot of events, that to me feels like something that maybe should come back. Yeah. Okay.
Good idea. Let's do
Okay,
that.
so we clear of a way forward.
Should I just summarise it and then?
Yeah.
The proposal is it'll be a slow moving of a process because we're already in train with lots of events that have already been planned. Rachel and I will come up with the work programme for her area, bearing in mind Fiona's point that there's dotted throughout the whole of the work programmes the word promote.
Can we please have all of those in one thing underneath the thing where Rachel's team is seeing, so we can see the full workload, particularly, like even if it's just an informal thing, just so that it is all in one place, because I think that's where
we can get Rachel to highlight, like she did the other day. That would be because if we do everything in market events, that means that the climate action thing is missing half the stuff that they're doing. So it's but if Rachel's area of the work programme comes to council for approval in December, we'll do some events to be formalised in March and up of whatever the right frequency is. With a budget next to it, that means that Rachel can then look at it in more detail and bring to this committee some approvals and recommendations about things that are coming out. Some have a very long tail, the planning stage, and that will need to be brought into that equation.
Yeah, I would just say
that Rachel and I would just need to decide whether to do or not.
Can I just, I think there's probably ones that we would probably all get, like you say, the Christmas lights. Like I think they can have their own as they have been, but I think it's so like anything. I'm just aware of actually I think that when you start planning Christmas, but it's very, very early on, and I think you also need that lead time. So yes, agreed, but maybe there are 1 or 2 events that are still the separate budget line. Yeah, that because they're.
Thank you, Rachel. The next bit, review of Open Spaces programme. I think we have a slide, Laura. So hopefully you've all read this. We've discussed open spaces a lot recently because of devolution and the possible pieces of land coming to us. We've all discussed that, and the councillors have been out looking on their wards to make themselves aware of what bits of land there are on their wards. We're feeding that into what our response to Somerset will be. Rob has created a RAG thing about all our work, and it's all in the green, as you would expect, appropriately enough. Yeah. So any questions on projects and updates in our projects that we can...
Keep up the good work.
Yeah. So that's what we... So, as you say, you've all read it, so that's an update. So the matter for decision is actually the creation of a new, appointing a new post of the assistant ranger, and purchase of new vehicle. You will be aware, and we allocated money, that with devolution we'll be taking on more land, more areas, and we've discussed these at various council meetings. The rangers at the moment are very fully employed. We would like to employ someone we're calling assistant ranger. We see this very much as a developmental post. So we take on an assistant ranger who could aspire to become a ranger and all the skills and benefits that entails, and they can aspire to do that towards. So there's somebody working practical outdoor work as part of a skilled team and working with communities, but is yet to gain the experience or training to undertake a full ranger role. And our intention is to train that person so they can one day fulfill, whenever it becomes a vacancy, they can fill the role as a fully fledged ranger. That may involve, I'd like to see an apprenticeship scheme. I don't know if that's possible. We'll have to look into that when and if we decide to recruit this person. So at the moment, that would be somebody who doesn't require all the full skills of a ranger. That would be grass cutting, collecting leaves, transporting materials, not the tree cutting, working in confined spaces, all the other stuff that our rangers are currently trained up to do. But with our training and with our support, they could aspire to doing that role as and when. So the proposal is to recruit an assistant ranger. Following on from that,
Can I just ask a question about the assistant ranger role, or just make a point about the assistant ranger? Whenever you take on an apprentice or someone who needs training up, there is a burden on the person doing the training, and I think that has to be recognised as well.
It is. And our rangers have been very good. I've been involved in the recruitment process for the last 2 rangers and other posts within that world. And our rangers have proven to be very accepting of a new ranger and train them and bring, not the skills, but assimilating into the team. And it's all worked, as far as I can see, and I see them quite often, it seems to have worked quite well so far. So yes, I think they would be welcomed. I mean, we recruited the town ranger, which is a slightly different role, and he has been very quickly adapted into the team, and they all work very well together and cover for each other. And it's, as far as I can see, a harmonious and good working team.
Yeah, and no doubt that will happen. I'm thinking more of the admin and the form filling and the paperwork associated with an apprentice. Yeah. You don't get an extra body. You get like 0.6 of a new person because someone has to do all of that paperwork and do all of that form filling and day release and things like that.
We might lose them a day a week on day release or going to college or things like that. So yes, all that's to be looked at. It may be that somebody applies for it who's really, really good, who doesn't want to do any of that, just wants to do that role alone. No, not so much responsibility, not so much on their back. So maybe we recruit somebody like that. We will only until we advertise and get interviewing people that will know what they are like. But if somebody wants to come and they're a decent candidate and they want training, then we must be prepared to offer that, in my view. I don't know about the rest of the decision-making body here. So the costs are covered. We already have that funds have been allocated within that in the evolution budget.
Question about that. Was that part of the 350,000, and was it like specifically named as, I think there was like a 75,000 under that was from memory, that was for the open spaces. Was it part of that?
When we gave a very rough outline of how the 350 might be spent, the ranger was within the open spaces, yeah.
But it wasn't officially allocated. What I was getting at, it was sort of, so it was mentioned, but it wasn't sort of said this is definitely what it would be spent for.
Well, within open spaces, it was very clear that at least one assistant ranger and another ranger and 2 vehicles would probably be needed for devolution. I think the assistant ranger role is just being brought forward because now's the time to integrate and expand. But, sorry, have I answered your question, Fiona, or not?
Just trying to picture trying to work out whether it actually was allocated or whether, because my memory was that it was like 350,000 for devolution, and then there was sort of 75 of this will probably be spent on, but I don't know. But it was also included in the staff chart and everything, so it was definitely like part of it. It's being me being persnickety, I think.
Yeah, I just don't think that we were absolutely 100% how the 350 was going to be divvied, but the most clear things were the open spaces items.
Okay. So we'll come to that in a minute. And then with more people, we need more equipment. The yellow transit van that's been an icon of Frome Town Council for God knows how many years now is practically dead, isn't it? So it's it cost £2,000 last year to get through the MOT, so that's not sustainable. So we need to find a vehicle to replace that one. We would also like to find the Hilux that we bought last year. It's proved a huge success. That was a very specific vehicle, technical vehicle, but it does an awful lot of work for the Rangers. If we're taking on more and more space, especially land that isn't very easy to approach, 4x4 is a good idea. That one tips and all that sort of stuff, but we do need another vehicle of a similar nature, but more the basic vehicle for that, not tipping and all the other stuff that it does. And we've had a look at that. We think we could get another Hilux for about £20,000, £21,000, and we would like to replace the yellow Transit. We appreciate that the Hilux is a diesel vehicle, although it's ULEZ compliant and Euro 6 and the best you can get currently, but we would like to replace the van with an electric van. It goes mostly around the town, doesn't do very long runs, doesn't have to go off-road so much, just hauling materials and people around the town. And so that's an ideal vehicle, an ideal opportunity for us to get an electric vehicle. We would look at a used vehicle, I think, rather than a brand new one, because I think a new one is about 40-something thousand pounds, but we think we could get one for 20 to 25,000 pounds, slightly used, and a lot better than the thing we've got at the moment. So those are the questions that we're asking tonight. Before we go to the recommendations, but the recommendations are the Assistant Ranger, Hilux, and an electric van. Any questions on those?
My only thought with the electric van is if we considered the cost of repairs and upkeep, just because it can be so drastically more expensive than your classic diesel.
They can be, and I think we found that with the little truck that we replaced last time, that became quite expensive to replace to work. But his hand up, maybe he's got insight into that one. Yeah, Rob, maybe you've got more information on that.
Well, thank you. Just to say that we explored the key question with electric vehicles is the batteries. How long do the batteries last? Because if you need to replace the batteries, that's a very big cost. But we've been assured by Ford that the batteries will last 10, 12, 15 years. So that's the major item. And as Mark says, the range that we do is so little. I mean, the actual mileage of the iconic yellow van is very low. I think it's 45,000 after all these years. It's rusted away. So we don't think the mileage is an issue. We don't think the range is an issue, and we don't think the battery is an issue. So unlike the Bradshaw G2, G4, which really aren't a high quality of finish and constantly need servicing and specialized parts brought over from France, unlike that, this is a really solid Ford Transit best in class in Top Gear and the other reviews. So we think the reliability is definitely tried and tested, and we think the battery life means that the cost of ownership is very good as well. So we've reviewed this quite a lot, and the Rangers have actually borrowed one for 3 days and really put it through its paces. They got a bag of sand, a 1 ton bag of sand. They just rode round the whole day with the bag of sand, and you didn't even notice the bag of sand was in. It feels like it is fit for purpose.
Thank you, Rob. Anne?
You should have videoed it and put it out on YouTube, driving around all day with a bag of sand.
I did go and talk to the Rangers who've been driving around in it, and it did seem, speaking to people who are going to be using it, it did seem to be a suitable...
Our own version of Top Gear.
Yeah. So if are there any more questions? If not, I'll go to the recommendations to vote. Are we going to... Go on, Fiona.
I don't really want to say it because my inner Max is saying that we are voting for this before we've actually voted for the devolution deal. And it just feels a little bit like we are agreeing to spend money when we haven't actually agreed to the devolution. I'm going to swallow it because I think it is the right time. And I've been in conversations and we are fairly far forward, and I think it is going to happen. But it just feels a bit uncomfortable to me that it's cart horse at the moment.
I get your point. Even if we didn't get 1 square metre of green land from the devolution deal, those of us on planning committee know there's all these things coming down the line, which people will say, and we will give you the green space as well. So it's likely that we'll end up with a lot more green space, even if we get nothing from Somerset. There's a lot of green spaces coming down the line, whether we want them or not. So, but if you have an objection to this, please. No, I'm raising it as I think about it. No, I'm just saying it does feel a little bit. Okay, so we're going to take these recommendations. We'll take these recommendations all in one, if that's okay with you. So you can see the recommendations in front of you. Fiona's proposing them. Ben will second.
That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. There you go, Rob.
Thank you very much. Great.
Okay. Sarah with the financial update now. This used to be a list of spending on items over £500, and now I see it's £100. Yeah. Which
I know, what a nightmare. We tried and tried. We had various email correspondences with the ICO, and then forwarding the replies back to the internal auditor, who'd say, no, they've not referred to the right document. Go back to the ICO. And I've got to take up the correspondence again with the ICO.
I think there is a danger in reducing the bar down to £100 because I think it's too much and things will get lost in the detail, in the wood for the trees.
Yep. But we have to take the advice of the internal auditor.
Absolutely. But
and for councillors, if they just want to scan the figure column and just look at the ones over 500, that's fine too. You can filter it that way.
What is purchase order journal for reporting? It's in there loads and loads of times.
exactly the question I was going to ask.
What is
It's money that's not yet spent, but there's a purchase order raised for it, and our new reporting system doesn't give you the detail, so we have to put a manual journal in. Someone's put a purchase order in for something that's not yet spent. We have to show that that the budget has been used to that extent.
Do we then see what it was spent on in the next lot of reports?
Yes, you'll see it when it's spent. You don't see it when it's journaled, ready to be spent.
So some of them are quite significant. At first I thought we were literally talking about like little books or something. I was like thinking they were like your like accounting books. And then I looked through and I was like, there was one for like 16,000 or something. I was like, that's not it.
Yeah, no, purchase order journals are those that are not yet spent.
Does anybody have a question specifically for Sarah about any of the 17 pages of, is there anything jumping out at them they want to ask about?
It was interesting. Like you do get a real sense of what money's going on.
Oh, yeah. So we don't have to, this is for information really, we don't have to make any.
Yep, I was going to say what I've said before, which is you've seen the papers, any questions?
I want to big up my appendices.
And I
All
want to
about
thank Anne for writing the
ESG.
appendices. I apologise, Anne.
No, I just want to flag up to other members of the committee that we do keep the ESG policies of every financial institution we have money with under review, and we're going to try and do it on an annual basis.
Yes.
Let's try and do it on an annual basis. I attended a webinar on the ESG policies of CCLA, because that's where we've got the vast majority of our money. And it was informative. They seem to be doing the right thing. Barclays is still under review. We'd rather not be with Barclays, but there isn't a better bank account for what Sarah and her team need.
So that leads on.
Can I just ask a question about the things? Sorry, Rachel, I'm going to have to mention the loos. It was quite stark seeing the amount of money that is being spent on market yard loos and all those different repairs, plumbings, etc. I did actually bump into Sean down there the other day, and we had a bit of a conversation about them. So I guess I'm sort of looking for, it's not really related to the spending, but what I can't think what we approved at the it was 20 from memory 27,000 a year.
I think
we sort of approved.
I think it was about 25.
25. We're at
but actually
16,000 already.
It's 16 and it's projected to be about 40 by the end of the year. But before that, council will get a report on what we recommend doing with the toilets. We didn't expect the costs to be anything like this, and we've invoiced Somerset for 8,000 of those costs because they are for maintenance costs that aren't in our contract. We're only contracted to keep them clean at present.
So we're not doing repair. So
We are doing repairs because our understanding is that council want the toilets kept open. So we're keeping them open, but as the cost increases, we're trying to come up with solutions, which we will discuss with you.
Yeah, can we? Yeah, I think it's
We make a claim against Somerset for that cost.
We are
Yeah.
for 8,000 so far.
It's just so frustrating that we're trying to do something and they're just getting vandalised, and it's just frustrating. It's really sad and it's frustrating, and especially when it's a changing places lose. And I'm one of the biggest advocates for inclusivity and will always argue for that. And it's just frustrating that it costs so much money to even get. And it wasn't on us, that was put in by Somerset Council, who did an amazing job. Yeah.
It's desperately frustrating to us too, but we are looking at solutions.
And we will come back to, hopefully, to the next Oversight Committee with some recommendations about the toilets. As long as we've got some options and recommendations concrete enough to give you.
Can I just suggest, I think as personally, I can't speak about the councils, I'm open to all options. So if, I know Rachel said, maybe the cheese and grain, or, I am open to different options, including shutting them. Let's see what we have to, I quite like to see all different options.
Absolutely right. To look at all of them.
We're having lots of conversations at the moment, and hopefully we will be able to come back quickly to you with them.
Thank you, Rachel. So we have recommendations to approve the income and expenditure, the balance sheet and the list of payments, but also to note a report that Anne is going to give now. Or you're just going to...
Just note, I'm sure you read it.
I have.
It's all about ESG.
Gripping.
And there's loads more that if you click on the links on the digital version, and they'll take you through, and you can read yards of information from every financial institution who measures their ESG in a completely different way, everyone. So it's not possible to judge once against another because it's all apples and pears, but we're all doing stuff.
Out of interest, are there other frameworks that people use other than ESG that are, as you
well, in the paper we talk about the United Nations and the UK way, but there are so many codes of measuring ESG, and ESG means different things to different people. Some people are heavily on the E, other people are heavily on the G. And some are impact rather than ESG. So they don't look at how much carbon they're producing. They look at what positive impact on society we're having in the projects that we fund. So it is all apples and pears, but we we just look at how, because it's all so subjective, but we just look at how good the financial institutions are that we invest in.
Can I ask something? Sarah's going to kill me for asking this. It would be really interesting at some point to see how much of our budget per year is spent locally, and obviously that we would need to see it. But I was just looking at that list, I was thinking there's lots of local companies here, but also I'm just wondering, and you could even include like the staff members that live locally as well, but I just sort of, it would be really interesting to know how much of our £3 million is going back into the community, and if there was a way of like quickly marking stuff and then pulling out a lovely pie chart with, you know, like
Lizzie
this is
Boyle.
how much within,
Lizzie Boyle did that
this
last.
is within Froome, this
yeah.
is within Somerset, or within 50 miles. Like it would. Is that really? Is that? I don't want to give you a lot of like you do. Is it?
I don't know. I'll look into how much time that would take.
Yeah. Thank you. If it's a lot, don't worry. But if it's not, it would be really interesting to see.
Okay, so in that case, I intend moving on to the recommendations for agenda item 6, which are in front of you. Anne's proposing her own recommendations.
Noting.
Fiona will second, Ben and I will vote accordingly.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Thank you. I think that brings this evening's meeting to a close. The next one will be the 23rd of October.
Safeguarding? Any?
Again, oh, I'm sorry, Laura, I've completely...
Everything is mostly fine and dandy, but there is a particular situation we are dealing with as part of the staff body. A member of the public is consistently entering the town hall. We have had to now involve the police, so we're working closely with them and obviously making sure the staff are safe and comfortable, and that obviously the person in question also is made safe. And so I just wanted to say that that is a situation we are monitoring and making sure that we are actively looking into. I don't know if anyone's got anything else to add on that.
Can I just clarify for the record that they are entering the town hall and entering offices that they are not authorised to do?
Absolutely.
And the latest one was this afternoon. That's why we thought we'd bring it up now. It's quite difficult to handle, but we're getting advice. And we took the precaution this afternoon of locking the town hall so people who wanted to come in had to ring the bell. But that was from 3 till 5 this afternoon.
Hence why I went running when the phone rang.
Good, but we have processes in place for protect our staff, especially who are in the building.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for that, Laura. So now I will close the meeting. The next one's the 23rd of October, which is my birthday, so I may not be here. So, but thank you for coming, and see you next time.
Thanks, Mark.